Hi everyone, welcome to this Instagram live where I want to share a little more about the current happenings in the collective, especially for us women. This is something, for those of you who are completely new here, this is something that I do on a regular basis, but I haven't been doing much publicly on my Instagram. But I tap into the collective energy of, um, humans, women. Today I really want to focus on women. And I'm able to see what is currently alive energetically. I'm able to see, where we're moving, what direction we're moving in, and what is the most dominant energy in the collective right now, what is happening between the lines of current global events. So this is something that I do. I love doing energetic readings of places, countries, cities as well. This is something that I haven't been doing much on my Instagram, but in my private circles, I share a lot about that. And I got some of your questions, which I will address as I move through what I have planned today when it comes to just sharing what I've been feeling. I, of course, brought a tarot card because that is something that always opens the space beautifully, in my opinion. And of course, the World card showed up for today's conversation. And the World card is the last card of the tarot, is the last card before we go back to the Fool, which is the first card of the tarot. And I wasn't surprised because what I was preparing for you, this conversation about womanhood, about where we're headed as women, what this new era of womanhood is energetically, one of the words was rebirth that kept coming up, and there was some resistance within me because rebirth gets thrown around a lot. In spiritual communities, online, like it's become such like, we're just rebirthing all. While I do agree, we do rebirth. We are all rebirthing, I agree. But I feel like it's a word that gets thrown around a lot. And with this card, I was like, okay, whatever, I will say it. I will bring up the rebirth because this is literally the card of rebirth. And as you can see, this is kind of like a Yoni over here, and she's naked. She's being birthed into something completely new, into a new portal. And I guess that's how I want to begin this conversation, because with the world, there's so many details that that not just connected to rebirth. There's also so many details around stepping onto a new journey, and this is also the energy of reclaiming freedom. She's naked. It's the most freeing experience. If you ever dance naked, you know what it feels like, right? It's the most freeing experience, and she's stepping through this yoni-like, I don't even know what it is. It's like shape, right? And the new freedom that we're stepping into is a good place to start, I think, when it comes to the collective of womanhood, right? And, something that came up as a first step, as a first point that I want to raise in today's conversation is this idea that, women are currently in a transitionary space, in a place where, and this is something that I teach a lot in my classes, by the way, those of you who have taken classes with me, this is just a little revision of what we talk about all the time, right? We are in a transitionary space right now as a collective. And this transitionary space feels a little bit like that, like we're in the middle of the contractions, the traveling through the womb and the, birth, right? And it's not always comfortable. Sometimes you're like, I want to go back into the warmth of the womb. And yet also you're in this momentum, right? You're being moved. You're, like the female body just moves the baby, right? There's so much happening At the same time, you do want to travel through the birth canal and you want to end up on the other side, right? So we're in this place where it's like, oh, this is really uncomfortable. Do I want to go back or do I want to go forward? Do I continue this journey? This is what's happening right now for women on a collective level. And if you really think about it in more practical, tangible ways, I like using that, explanation or that example that we are in a place where, we've, on a, say, political, economical level, we have gained our freedom. I do this because there's still many, many ways that we're being discriminated against, especially, in the workplace, in the workspace, and in certain countries. So we have gained our freedom, right? We are doing the whole thing of like, okay, freedom to vote, we can have jobs that, whatever jobs we want to have, right? We're kind of on the same level as men, right? Comparingly. And yet something feels slightly off, right? And it's not just because there's still injustice towards women. It's not because the majority of the world is currently being run by white middle-aged men. It's not just those details. It's also us realizing that we're living in a society where everything is just built for the male body, right? Even medicine, right? The majority of medical trials were performed on male bodies, right? They weren't performed on female bodies. And that has become like the standard, right? Like things that we're being prescribed, or the information that we get about our bodies, the information that we get about nutrition, everything is just like the norm. The standard is the male body, and then everything is just like shared with us as if like, we are to adapt to it, right? And it's the same thing. The same thing is happening on a collective level. Maybe not in every country. I agree with that. I'm more so thinking European countries. I'm thinking the West, of course, more Western countries. But we're realizing that we're just like inside of a hamster wheel. And not just women, of course, but I want to really, really hone in onto women. It's not my place to talk about men right now. We are really, we are realizing how much we're stuck in a hamster wheel. We're stuck in the same patterns over and over again, and everything in our society is mirroring the male body, which is a 24-hour hormonal cycle, right? 9 to 5 jobs are meant for men, if you really think about it. There's a hormonal component to it. Their testosterone and cortisol spikes in the morning, and then everything kind of dies out in the afternoon. For women, however, we have a roughly 28-day cycle, not a 24-hour cycle. So the way we've been moving, adjusting ourselves and our cycle to this, and I'll talk more about the cycle soon, but the way we've been moving in this society and the way we've been adjusting to the 24-hour hormonal cycle, which is not our innate natural cycle, is slowly destroying us. And we're noticing that. And I see that in women who are not necessarily spiritually attuned or who are in the woo-woo world. I'm seeing this in women who are just waking up literally every single day. I have conversations like that with women from all paths of life, where they're waking up to this realization of like, oh my God, what am I even doing? And why am I just living in such a stressful life, right? And that is the realization. And then when it comes to, okay, so what do we actually want, right? Again, going back to the world card, going back in time, we don't want to go back. We don't want to go back to just staying at home, working the kitchen, raising the children. Some of us do, and I think if that is your deliberate choice, you should be able to do that. If you feel like this is your path as a woman, then go ahead and do it. It's the hardest job in my opinion. So and then, you know, the future is not quite clear yet. Like, okay, like what's happening right now is not working. And I'm seeing it a lot in women who are in corporate. More and more women who are in corporate are waking up and they're just like, ooh, my feminine is dead. It has completely disconnected herself. I mean, she has completely disconnected herself from my body, and I'm just like moving through life like a man. And this of course has impact, or this of course impacts our hormones, our health, amongst other things, our relationships of course. And yet we're like not sure where we're moving when it comes to the future. Just like right, birthing, you know, after the world card, the first card is the Fool. And the Fool is like the beginning of a new journey. We don't know where we're going. Everyone around us is kind of telling us that we are up to no good with the Fool. I won't talk too much about the Fool, but it's the beginning of a journey. It's jumping into the unknown. So that is currently the setup for all of us women. So we're kind of, you know, we're kind of tapping into all these different areas of our lives, and we're experimenting a lot as a collective right now. And there's a lot of experimentation around, okay, what makes us happy, what makes us feel successful as women, what makes us, you know, really thrive, what do we actually want, because the past of women's history is not mirroring what it is that we actually desire, right? It's not mirroring at all the freedom that we want to have and the flow that we want to embody. The current reality isn't really mirroring that either, right? As I mentioned, our society is built for men by men, and we kind of just like jumped into that structure as women, and now we're constantly adapting. It's a constant like adjusting to that rhythm, right? Which is very, very toxic. And so what I'm getting as the messages that I've been getting about the female collective right now, the feminine, is that there needs to be a deeper connection with the flow of nature. So being more so in tune with nature's flows. And I'm not just talking about we need to start growing our own food, right? We need to have communal gardens, and we need to be all living, you know, in a community on land that belongs to us. Yes, this is all great, but I'm talking more so about the our internal world mirroring the natural cycle of nature, right? The cyclical aspect of nature that we need to start mirroring. And I have lived in many communities where we live on the land and eat from the land. I've done that, you know, in places like Hawaii and India. Like I've been in those spaces, and there was always some form of discord, some form of disconnect, where I was like, okay, we live those lives. On the surface, it looks so idyllic, but we are not embodying those aspects, those values, those natural flows that we are maybe externally built for ourselves. And that's kind of the big issue there, because you still end up places like that with people living with people in dynamics that are very much mirroring what's happening in big cities, right? We're still projecting the same stuff. We're still like, our internal worlds are so disconnected from nature. And I've seen that even in places where we live in a jungle and seemingly a very, you know, free life, and yet the inner world is not mirroring that natural freedom or nature's grace at all. So one of the things that that's been coming through a lot while I've been reflecting, contemplating, being in meditation with where, what's next for the feminine, this idea of nature's grace as feminine grace keeps coming up over and over again. And one of those aspects, like, what do I mean? As always, my hair is just like all over my face, even when I'm inside and not doing this outside in the wind. And what do I mean by that? I think one of the first aspects of that, one of the first, more tangible examples that I can give is definitely the ability to no longer force. Because how we go through life, right? This is what we've been taught, first of all. And this is how our society is built, right? By men for men. It's this forcefulness. So it's not being ambitious. It's not about that at all. Because some people interpret forcefulness as something positive, but it's actually not. And if you look at nature, nothing in nature forces, right? Things just develop in a very natural way. There's some cycles, there's cyclical aspects to it, right? And you can't force a tree to just grow faster, right? And the tree will take its time to grow, and it will mirror what is happening, of course, in terms of climate and everything that we're going through with the earth being destroyed. But otherwise, nothing in nature is forcing anything. And we are so disconnected from that cycle that, you can see it in humanity a lot, that we're just like constantly forcing things, like making things happen, not just in career and work and projects. And I personally catch myself do that a lot as well. I'm someone who comes from a very intense culture, and I was raised to just succeed all the time and do all these things. And, immigrants can probably relate to that. And I catch myself a lot, forcing sometimes. And then I realize, oh, hold on a sec, right? It's a very deeply embedded programming that we have. And again, it's mirrored by the collective of the masculine collective, right? Everything, even the wars that we're currently all living through. It's not a natural expression of the natural flow, right? And there's forcing. There's a lot of forcing, amongst other things that I won't get into. But this idea of forcing, it's gonna just make things a lot harder in life as we move forward in our consciousness. And our consciousness is expanding, even if it doesn't feel like it right now in our humanity. It is. We are changing timelines in a way. We are changing, reality is becoming more malleable, a lot less rigid. So the reality is always obviously mirroring your inner state, right? So as you force, you first of all, exhaust your adrenals. Second, there's so much stress that comes with force, the unrealistic expectations. Force also disconnects you from your intuition and what is actually right for you. Force comes from the ego fighting to get something or to get somewhere, depending on where you force nowadays, right? Forcing is actually the thing that takes us the farthest away from the present moment. So forcing is the thing that creates illusions, and that creates a box, an energetic box around us where we just stay stuck, and we don't really know where we're going when we're constantly forcing. When there's a constant wave, a constant pattern rather of forcing, we never end up in a place that where we actually are meant to go, because our inner guidance, our intuition always knows. It's so deeply connected with our soul. It's so connected to our innate power or innate sense of freedom that we're constantly being guided. And when we force, the inner guidance is just like, okay, you do your thing. I'm sure some of you can relate when you have ignored your intuition, and then the intuition kind of steps away and just kind of, if I'm to personify intuition, she's kind of like, okay, you do your thing and see what happens. And then you end up in a place where you're like, shoot, I should have listened to my inner guidance and my intuition instead of forcing through. I hope this makes sense. That's one of the aspects of how we as women have been ignoring the natural flow of things. And a lot of this forcing, as you probably, I really want you to think of your own examples. I won't give like very specific examples right now, simply because I want you to reflect on your own relationship with that word forcing. I really want you to, allow this energy of that word to settle into your consciousness so you can figure out, okay, what does it mean to you? I don't want to use specific examples because then some of you might be like, it doesn't relate to me at all because she's talking about forcing in the workspace and I'm not climbing the corporate ladder, right? So the forcing, of course, affects our bodies as well. And that's a great transition into the next part. What I wanted to share is how much our bodies are affected by our thoughts, how much our bodies and of course our realities, everything that's material, and the body is kind of material, right? How much we are being affected by our thoughts, by our mindset, by our world's view and perspective on life. And this is something that we absolutely all need to work on. And this is something that's been showing up over and over in my conversations with my clients lately, conversations with my partner, conversations me with me, it's this idea of like, wow, it's crazy how many layers of conditioning there are. No matter how much we work on ourselves, we still can't catch thoughts, mindsets, perspectives on life that are not conducive towards this new reality that we're all stepping into, this new sense of, freedom, this creating of the new reality rather than stepping into the new reality. We're all creating this new reality. How not conducive all this past stuff is. And what do I mean by all of that? If you really think about it, up until the age of 7, and this is for everyone. We were all, at one point, 7 years old. Up until the age of 7 is where the heaviest of our conditioning happens. It's where we absorb like sponges ideas about life, whether life is safe or unsafe, love. Mom and dad are fighting all the time. That means this is what love should look like, what marriage or a relationship should be like. That's the interpretation, right? And the belief that gets kind of planted deeply within us. This is the age 1 to 7 is when we absorb our understanding of money, of worth, of what we're allowed to have and what we're not allowed to have. And of course, the whole picture of the world is also being painted for us from age 0 to 7, right? By those people who we grow up with, our caretakers, our education system. If you go to school, I skipped kindergarten and I went straight to, I think I did like kindergarten like 2 days and I hated it. And luckily my family was like, okay, we'll just send you to first grade whenever you're ready. But I started school at the age of 7. So my, I think in terms of education, 1 to 7, it's also your social circle, right? It's what your mom's friends or your dad's friends or your cousins and uncles, like what they believe or tell you, or the type of conversations they have around you builds your understanding and perception of the world. This is kind of basic psychology, but it's also so important for us to revisit, to remind ourselves that a lot of the stuff, a lot of your box that you have built for yourself, we all walk around in boxes is what I say. We have a frame built for us, right? It all comes from that age, 1 to 7. And again, it's all these different spheres of your life are like immersed in that era of your life. And right now what is happening is that a lot of these conditionings, mindsets, and perspective of life are affecting us not only energetically, but they're also affecting our health. So, and I like speaking more so from a place of psychosomatics and the chakra system, because those are the subtle levels of our bodies that Western medicine doesn't recognize. But maybe sometime in the future, we'll have more advanced medicine, and people will be thinking not just about body parts, but about the energetics of things too, and how the energy of our bodies, the subtlety of our bodies, is also creating diseases and is also, affecting our quality of life. It's not just the physical aspects of our bodies, right? So what I'm noticing right now is that as we move forward into the future, we're becoming more and more sensitive to how our thoughts, our perception of life, our anticipation of certain events, of certain things happening in the external world are affecting our health and are affecting our relationships, happiness, whatever else, right? And it's all again coming from what was built when we were children, the worldview that was built for us. So working with that is so important. And one of the things that I wanted to mention as just an example is if you perceive everything as doom and gloom will keep happening to you, not just on the collective level, but it will show up in your own reality. And if you are constantly stuck in a state of reactivity, you are feeding kind of the entities that will keep returning to feed on your energetic body and create certain diseases, certain malfunctions. I don't even know what word to use. Disturbances in your body, let's call it that. So for example, there's a lot of we need to fight the evil nowadays, right? Or we need to find justice. And I do agree that there's a lot of justice that that's not, we're not getting any justice in relation to many events and political things. But the place of reactivity where you are engaging with, say someone is screaming at you. I love using that example because it's the most obvious one. Someone is screaming at you. Maybe they're saying that it's your fault, that something happened, and you engaging and feeding the entities that are then feeding on your energetic settled body, you'll be like fighting that person, right? Maybe not physically, but you'll be like, no, what do you mean about blah, blah, blah. You get into a whole like argument with them. and on top of it, you start insulting them just so you can hurt them, right? This whole like argument, reactivity, and of course they fight back, and then this constant, just like dogs, right? And you open up a portal when you are in that turmoil, conflict of just like reactivity, yelling at each other. You open up a portal where a channel, imagine, energetically speaking, a channel of energetic vulnerability. So you open up channels rather, where then, entities that don't have the best intentions start entering your field. And this is, not to do the whole fear-mongering thing. I don't believe in, fear-mongering and that, oh my God, we need to fight the entities. This is the reality that we live in. It is what it is. There are certain entities out there, and in the energetic realms, just like spirit guides. I think spirit guides, your spirit helpers, are just the opposite of like those entities. And we all carry entities, by the way. Just FYI, we all have entities, the good entities, the neutral entities, the bad entities, negative entities. We all have them. And some of them are more active and others not. So basically, not to fear-monger, but this is kind of the reality of what happens. You open up that channel, that portal, where you invite in the entities who start feeding on your energetic body, your subtle body. It's becoming so strong nowadays. Okay, this is why I'm sharing this. It's in relation to everyone, but I want to specifically talk to women, right? This will then affect your health, of course, your psychological, mental health. This will affect your physical health and your energetic health. And you will keep ending up in situations like that because those entities that have entered your channel, or like your field, your energetic field, they want to feed more on that, right? So they're like, let's create some more drama, right? Imagine them like these like personified, little creatures. They're like, okay, we want to create more drama. Where can we end up in the right place at the right time so there's some drama again? That's kind of what happens. So a big part right now is the work with the mind. So the more we neutralize the mind, the more we are in our power. It's no longer so much about how do we, who's the stronger debater, who's the strongest who's the strongest at argumentation. It's not so much who's the strongest fighter anymore. It's literally about neutrality. And that's a big part of the Kundalini yoga that I teach. Those of you who are watching, those who have been with me in classes, this is what we work on nonstop in Kundalini. We are working on our neutrality so we can really feel what is our truth and really feel the inner guidance and really feel our intuition instead of succumbing to other people's neurosis and other people's fears and whatever else they're projecting, right? Those who are not doing the inner work, they have a harder time. So there's no surprise that they're gonna be projecting and yelling at you, right? The example they used before. So it's the neutrality of being able to hold intensity of today's world, of today's energetics, of the collective. We train this neutral mind with the Kundalini, with the traditional Tantra that I teach. If any of you want to join the 5-week program, the 5-week weekly Kundalini, we're starting on the 2nd of September. Just message me and I can give you more details. But this is what we're working on because spiritual hygiene is a non-negotiable in this new era that we're stepping into as women. Big non-negotiable. Because once again, if we keep succumbing to the drama, the conflicts, the constant entanglements, constant need to prove yourself. That's another thing. The comparisons. You are giving all of your energy away. You're giving your power away. When you think that you are fighting something, trust me, 99% of the time, you're actually giving that thing your power away. So a lot of these things are currently being rewritten. They're being completely revised on an energetic level. So things like proving, right? And that's another one, big one in the feminine collective, that we've been trying to prove something. I get it, coming from our past. Thank you, feminists, who did the work for us, right? But coming from the past, where women had to prove that they are smart, that they are able to complete a college education, right? Because back in the days, we were seen as half human, right? So yes, for the longest time, we had to be on edge with that. And we had to, try and prove that we are at the same level as men in all these different countries, right? At least in some countries. And this has seeped into the collective subconscious right now. We are still there as women, not in a direct way. Maybe in some places, I think in some places we are very much there in a direct way, but on a subconscious level, on an energetic level, we are still very much competing with men. And that is one of the things of, where we're headed as women, is that we need to finally de-armor and release the armor and stop this competition. Because men are men and women are women, and we're a completely different species, let's call it that, right? And we have our own powers, strengths, our own abilities that men can't compete with. And even if we can do all the things that men can do, it doesn't matter, right? You don't need to rub it in anyone's face. But that's what's been happening on a subconscious level. There's just like this need to rub in the men's face, like, okay, I can do all these things and better if I wanted to, right? And I think this game, moving into the future of the feminine collective, this game will have to slowly be wrapped up. And we have to wrap it up in a way, because it's not taking us anywhere. It's perpetuating us playing the game of the patriarchal conditioning. This constant, we're constantly part of the game. The more we force, the more we fight, the more we compete, we are strengthening the entity of the patriarchy. Speaking of entities, patriarchy is totally an entity as well, a very toxic entity that's very destructive as well. But now, some of us are coming to the realization, okay, like, how can I connect to my strength and my inner freedom rather than try and compete with men and get that external validation. Sometimes we say we don't want external validation, but on the subconscious level, when you compete, you are looking for that external validation. So this too is so connected to our ability to surrender and trust life more. It's our ability to connect to ourselves, to maintain that neutral mind. All the work we really do in this traditional tantra that I teach, the kundalini, the practices that I teach. And I'm just looking at my notes. What time it is? Okay, I'll introduce one last thought, one last idea that kept popping up when I was connecting to the collective of the feminine, and where we're headed next, where we're moving next as women. We have to learn how to surrender to the universe and life. surrender, surrendering is going to be a huge part of, as a topic, it's going to be a huge part of my next Becoming Women 6-week program. I am hosting this 6-week program again because the results have been just phenomenal. And this time we're going to go really, really deep. And it's the closest my work comes to one-on-one work, but we're in a group container and we go through all of these topics that I'm addressing here, by the way. But surrender will be a huge topic that we'll be unpacking throughout 6 weeks. What is surrendering to the universe and to life means? It's finally stopping the micromanaging of the universe. So this is just the opposite of the forcing, right? Like I talked about the forcing without giving examples, so you can find your own examples where you're doing that in life. So surrendering to the universe, surrendering to life, and to your own feminine, I think. Surrendering is one of the most revolutionary mindsets, approaches for women. And we are very resistant to that aspect. And if I pull that world card up again, the world, right? When you are going through the birthing canal, we don't remember that consciously, right? But at one point, both the mother and the child need to surrender, right? Because you can go back into the womb, right? As I mentioned, you just have to kind of go forward and travel through the discomfort. And that's the act of surrendering. That's coming through very strongly with this card that I just pulled for today's live. And when you surrender, it's a very uncomfortable place, because you'll start to realize that things that are not fully aligned start to crumble. You're no longer forcing, so a lot of the things that you were achieving or getting or doing by force, they're gonna fall off as well, and they're no longer gonna be relevant. And that is also an uncomfortable aspect for us to experience, especially if you're someone who has been forcing her whole life. When you are surrendering, it's releasing of control, and a lot of us are addicted to control. And the addiction to control is something that I won't get into today. But once again, you're giving your power away when you're addicted to control. And you are silencing your inner guidance and your intuition. So this whole idea of letting go of micromanaging the universe and surrendering, this is how you allow quantum leaps to happen. This is how you allow yourself to jump onto new timelines where you have, your life just turns around completely, right? From the old age of the Piscean age, right? That we are just emerging out of on a collective level. In the past, we're being told if you want to turn your life around, you gotta force through it. You gotta take your things, your life into your own hands, and you need to make things happen. No longer works. The more you do it, it's like banging your head against the wall. You're not gonna quantum leap like that, or you're not gonna change timelines. Things are not gonna be resolved. For those of you who don't understand what all this quantum leaps means, the problems in your life, the challenges, the things that you want to change, they're not just going to resolve the more you force through them, the more you try and apply your force. It's by surrendering and by allowing the universe to take the steering wheel, that things will start to change, and faster than you would ever expect it to happen. And it's going to happen in such unexpected ways that your little mind and our little worldview that we have built from age 1 to 7 by watching our households building that worldview for us, that this thing will start to crumble, and this you start to see only in hindsight, oh, if I didn't just surrender to maybe like a spontaneous desire to do something or go somewhere, or I can think of examples right now, but if you were taking things too much into your own hands, you might have missed the opportunity. And you can only realize that when you look back into certain events that took you to a completely different timeline, or things just resolved as if magically. They never happen from you forcing through things, right? It's you letting things rest for a sec, allowing the universe to do her thing. And that's when you realize, damn, I would have never thought of such an outcome. Oh, damn, I would have never ended up in this amazing new timeline if I had just used my brain and my hands to get myself into that situation, forcing through. So that's a big message that's also been coming through while I'm reflecting on the future of the feminine and where we're headed as women, what this new era means for us, looks like, feels like. Before I end today, I want to address a few of your questions. I got a few things sent to me through my stories where I left the question box, and I have them in my notes that I will pull up. Okay, so one of the first things was like, okay, how do you actually feel all of this in your personal life, right? The shift of, where we're moving towards as women. How do I feel the shift in my own life and experience? Sometimes it helps to look back. So for me, if I look back to maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago, when my life was kind of moving very, 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 very fast, still is moving really, really fast, huge changes, nonstop. And I think if I'm to, connect these shifts to my own life and experience, I think I can feel it by looking at what my reality is mirroring towards me, right? It's the outcome of things. Again, whatever I was just sharing, when you surrender and you stop micromanaging the universe, things, the outcomes are very different. And I'm just seeing how my outer reality is mirroring things towards me. And on my own, in my own life and experience, I also, through the Kundalini work that I'm doing, the traditional Tantra and the Kundalini, it's, I'm able to see those timeline splits within myself. I'm able to see the, the past haunting coming in, and then I'm able to catch it, right? And be like, oh, okay, that's like an old pattern. And I can see how this old pattern, if I allow it to unfold, affects the outcome, the result of my current reality. For example, if I'm freaking out about something, right, this idea of just freaking out, let's call it that, whatever that thing is that I'm freaking out about, it's not going to work out because I worry about it, right? Let's call it that. If I'm too serious about something, if I'm thinking, okay, like, I need this thing to happen by that date and exactly in that way, micromanaging the universe, I know it's not going to happen. And it's almost like an energetic cloud that hangs over my head, and I can feel it very clearly. I'm very energetically sensitive, so I feel these different timelines and different mindsets and perspectives that I can switch in between. It takes a lot of training on the mind to notice that, but I just feel it, and those old things still creep up a lot. I guess that's what the question was that this person asked. I don't know, but I also feel the shift of like I can snap myself out of it. It's getting easier and easier, and I have my tools, I have my practices, and I literally can just close my eyes and I can just kind of clear things. And that's a whole other thing. That's the power of Satnam sign healing, which is something I do, and I won't get into here because I mainly do it in person. So next question was, where do you see the collective moving in the next few years? All the negativity and the wars and all that stuff. This is something I was talking about with a friend last week. And while it looks like we are moving towards the end of the world and, just global war and destruction and all this stuff, yes, it feels and seems like it. But I do feel like what's happening right now is also all the dark stuff, all the shadows are being pulled out from underneath, from the subconscious of the collective, and we have to face them. Just like shadow work with yourself, right? It's only, you can only hide your shadows for so long until they start spewing out of you, and a lot of them come out during romantic relationships, and you can hide your shadows as much as you want and not do the shadow work, but eventually they will pop up. And that's what's happening on the collective level right now, I think. So that is why it's so fucking scary. And that's typically how it is when you go through your own dark night of the soul and you're doing the shadow work, and then you wake up and you're like, oh my God, is this what spiritual awakening is like? Why did I, start meditating? I thought it's gonna be crystals and rainbows. But anyway, you know what it's like when you do that excavating within yourself. Exactly the same thing that's happening in the collective right now. And where we're moving right now, in my opinion, many people talk about this, by the way. I'm not inventing this. Many people talk about that, and I feel it at a very deep level. And we have to be careful with that. So I do feel like there's going to be a split, energetic split in the collective, where we'll have this like new era, say the Aquarian age, where people are more so tuned into the Aquarian age, and they know like all of these things I talked about today, right? All of these like little rules around, okay, let's stop micromanaging the universe. Let's no longer feed the entity of fear. Let's no longer force through life the way we were taught in the Piscean age. So there's going to be that timeline where people will be moving into a whole different reality, where they're more in tune with this idea that your reality will always mirror your inner world. It will always mirror your perception of life. It will always mirror your beliefs. And if you don't work on your beliefs, you're always going to be living in the same type of challenges and stories that your ancestors were. And then there's going to be the other, what do I call it, like branch of the split. The other branch is, people who are, exactly what I was just saying, right? Like, who kind of don't see the subtleties of things. And not to say that they're less or that they're not conscious or whatever. It's just not their mission right now. And it's okay. And you can force those people, hey, come on my branch because it's so much funner here. Yeah, it's so much funner, but for some people, this is overwhelming. And for some people, they don't want to know how much your reality is being influenced by your thoughts, right? Some people are just, shut up. I don't want to do any of this stuff. Let me just like live in my own thing that I've built for myself. Don't try and save me. A lot of the time when we go through these spiritual awakenings or whatever you would call it, maybe more so coming to self-awareness is what I would prefer to call it. We try and save everyone around us. We try and pull everyone and our grandma into it, being like, oh my God, you need to read this book. Have you heard about this practice? You need to come with me to this class to open up and, like raise your kundalini, all this stuff, right? Don't drag people into it. It should happen in a natural way if that is their path in this lifetime. So these two branches, will happen, and they will kind of split the collective a little bit, not separate. Of course, there'll be people who will find separation in that. That's an inevitable. But for those of us who are doing a lot of this inner work, we need to keep ourselves in check, because sometimes I hear things like, "Oh, I'm transitioning into 5D, and we'll be living in those higher timelines," and then all those people who are not doing the inner work, or who are not transitioning into 5D, are going to just stay stuck in the material world of suffering. We don't want to have this type of perspective either. It's very dividing, and it's just once again patriarchal as hell. So you want to make sure that you understand that in the end we're all one and all of the stuff, right? I won't talk about that, but you want to still accept and respect that people come here on like a soul contract. We're all here, and we chose our path. Something that I want elaborate on right now, maybe that's a conversation for another day, but we come into this body with a plan. We know what choices we'll be making. We know the type of life we'll be living, and yes, including the inner work that we are doing right now. The timeline change that we're doing right now, that is all part of the contract. So not trying to judge or drag other people into this new reality or whatever, into our path. And I'm talking both branches, right? If we really think this branch is trying to get those people into that branch, like it's a constant, it's either going to be constant division, or constant, hey, come here, what are you there, that is stupid of you, right? I think both parties have that ability to judge or wanting to change other people. So that is kind of what I'm seeing, what is happening in the next years. And I don't know if we're going to be in a utopian world with all of this. All I can say is that our reality is just going to get less and less dense, and it's just gonna things are going to move very, very fast. Very fast between what you feeling to thought, to your reaction. Everything will bounce back at you in such a fast way, a lot faster than it does right now. So be careful what you think about, how you think about life, how you think about people, what you wish people. Negative thinking will bounce back at you. That's why I don't believe in the evil eye, but that's a conversation for another day. Things will just bounce back a lot faster, which means the good stuff will also bounce back at you if you're, in a state of accepting yourself, dealing with your emotions, not just positive thinking, but being able to integrate the heaviness of the human experience, and also, also ending up in those places of gratitude and of appreciation, and that will just bounce back at you at a really fast pace. We're already experiencing that nowadays. I'm sure some of you can relate. So that's kind of what I'm seeing for the collective. I have some more questions, but I will address them in a different live. Maybe next, not live, Instagram live. Maybe next week I'll do another one because there were a few things I wanted to address, and I like the questions that you sent me. So maybe next week I'll go live again and we can chat again. Thank you, those of you who were here live, and those of you who are watching via recording. If you made it out here, those of you who watch the recording, let me know that you finished, and let me know your thoughts, questions, or anything else that's alive. Said now, and I'll see some of you next week.